Okay, thank you for tuning in to Stampscaping 101. This is a video on the oak branch number 203G. It comes in that size right here, which is the roughly a 3" by 4.5" size image, and it also comes in the smaller size right here, which is roughly about 2" by 3. Alright, now in this video what I'll do is I'll show you how I use this stamp. It can be used in its entire, well, that's not quite as in its entirety, but it's kind of more as a focal point of a given composition. But you can also use it just as little bits and pieces of it to create a foreground, to create a kind of a stronger vignette, and to create spacing and depth within a given scene coming from both above and below, okay, in a composition. It really extends the depth of your scene, and you can use it for different portions depending on what you're going after in terms of how thick you want the foliage to be in those given areas. Okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have this stamp right here or thinking about picking it up, you can see some different usages of it here in this short video clip. Alright, welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a video on the oak branch number 203G. It comes in two different sizes, but this is the one that I probably use a little bit more than the other just because I like the use of it as a foreground element, and the larger one just gives me scale. Here it is used in this stamp sketch right here in the upper left and right corners to represent kind of an overhanging tree limb in the foreground, and the viewer is standing underneath it, and it works as kind of a framing device when you use it that way. The oak branch can be used in its entirety, but for the most part I use it for the various portions of it, and I use it in different areas depending on the density of foliage that I want. This area down here is a little bit more dense, this one's a little bit more airy. If I have something that's really busy in the background but I want that foreground, then I'll use the airier one because you can see through it more. Or if I have a space in the sky or something like that that can use a little bit more, I don't know, filler and framing and mass, then I use the thicker and the heavier side of it, okay? Alright, let's take a look at some different sketches here, and I'll apply it. Oh, here's a scene that I just did recently. It's a Northern Lights type of thing, and it's just using the oak branch once and twice down there, okay? So it can just be used individually as well, and there's, you know, it works great with things like quote stamps and word stamps. If you put something there, you can stamp it in black, or if you want to stamp it in white, you can make it into kind of an icy covered branch over some dark cardstock. You can emboss it if you want to in silver or something like that on black paper, you know, for something really dramatic, and I've seen that used a lot. Okay, but let's take a look at it in some different compositions here, okay? I stamped out something, a few compositions just today, in fact, showing the rocky peaks here, but I didn't go into too many different foreground elements and really filling out the composition because it was really about the usage of the rocky peaks. But let's take a look here and let's see what we can do from a compositional standpoint to finish off these scenes a little bit more, okay? We would be doing additional coloring on here, but this is just for the compositional aspect of the design. Alright, most of these scenes are going to be a quarter-page card, okay? I have a larger one right here. I don't know if I'll use it on this, but that's a half page. This was a half page right here, okay? You can see I just use a portion of the stamp, probably, I don't know, maybe a quarter to a third of it in the corners of this one. Alright. Usually this stamp is going to be used as a foreground if it's used with other images, okay? So let's just use this. Now see down here, you can also use it as bushes coming from below, but we have a lot of busy area down here, and I don't know if I want to really use something like that down here, although you could. It wouldn't look too bad actually. But I think I'm just going to have it as an overhanging tree limb right here, and what that does is it kind of frames off the top of your scene really nicely, and I usually like putting a slight vignette to a strong vignette around my scenes, meaning darker corners, okay? But what this does is it creates an image that, in a sense, creates a vignette in itself in terms of imagery, not just tone, okay? So see, that works as a great little framing device up here. Things look a little bit more kind of organic in terms of the shapes right here. I kind of break up these hard corners of the format of the card, and it gives us a little bit of depth by having something close to us next to something that's really far, okay? And that would be a really fun one to tone in. This is a scene that I just did last night, and this looks okay as is, but let's take a look and see if we can't add a little bit more to this scene with the use of some foreground. Okay, now those reeds look good just as is, but what if we kind of mix our foliage down here a little bit, which happens in nature all the time. You don't just have one type of plant all the time in a given area. Okay, so I'm just using little portions of it, okay? Just to kind of layer those images down there in that foreground, okay? Something like that. See that right there? In this area, it's kind of stamped in the darkness, so it's a little bit more subtle. Alright? That wouldn't look too bad up here either, you know, if you want to put some hanging down like that. It would kind of frame off the top a little bit more. Let's go ahead and give that a try here. Okay. See, I'm just using this portion of it right here. So that's the thing about scenic stamping. When you get into your elements, you're just using certain portions for what you want. It doesn't always, you know, the entire image doesn't always have to be used within a given scene. Okay, see that right there? Kind of frame the scene off really nicely, and it kind of contains it a little bit more. And to blend that in, I think I would add a little bit more of a darker tone like that, and that will really contain that scene in a nice foliage framework. Okay? One thing that would be fun on this one is if you stamp that oak branch out in, say, pigment ink, sprinkled some embossing powder on it, heat set it, and you would have an actual raised foreground like that sticking out from the scene. So you want to make it look three-dimensional. Well, that raised area right there would actually give it some dimension, which would be kind of interesting too. It'd be like another layer of something. All right, here's this right here. The mountains get pretty close up there, but we have this open area down here. It would look good with that grass, but let's just use some of this oak branch as a little bush or something like that. It's not such a large tree. Okay. We can add this in like so into the foreground. It kind of makes it look like we're kind of walking, you know, into the scene, and we're kind of coming upon the cabin. I call this kind of a lead-in right here because we have these going like that, and now the viewer has this area to walk in. I wouldn't probably add it all the way across the front of it unless we want to kind of depict some kind of, you know, situation where someone is hiding or something like that, or spying on that cabin. Alright, let's do the same thing down here. This looks fine as is, but let's put in a little bit of foreground. Let's say I wanted to make it a little bit more airy. Let's use this portion this time. Okay, throw it down like this. It's kind of fun too if you have something like this meadow right here, and we add these branches in like this. Okay, let's go with one more here. Okay, so we've put these branches up like that, okay? And let's do something in this scene. Okay. Why don't we stamp this? Bull, elk. Okay. We'll stamp it out like right in here, like so. I kind of wiped off the bottom feet so it looks like it's standing in the grass. Alright, but if we put those kind of bushes up, it kind of gives us a little bit of cover. Well, maybe let's put a little bit more cover because that animal is kind of shy, so let's put some additional foreground in like so. So we can kind of hide ourselves and not scare it away before we take the photograph or whatever. Alright, so anyways, see this right here in the foreground, it kind of puts us in something as a viewer, looking through there into that scene. Alright? Alright, so that is that. That looks real similar to this one. You can do the same type of thing here. Okay. I don't know, here's this little area down here. We have this hard line, okay? And I think that could use some little softening here on the left and right side. So inking it up. And we can soften some of those hard geometric angles, okay? By putting something a little bit more organic into the mix. Okay, go with something like this. Okay, something like that. Kind of breaks up that edge a little bit, kind of creates a little bit of an opening for the viewer's eye to go in there. Alright, so that is that. Here's some oak trees or shagbark hickories. You can put something like that in there. That would be good. But anyways, I think you get the point here. You have some bushes coming in from underneath right here. You have the overhanging one coming from above right here. You can use, you know, a much larger portion of it, you know, where it becomes kind of the dominant subject matter of a given composition. Or it can just be very subtle, you know. I don't know if that's subtle, but it's just using little 1-inch portions of it in the top and bottom. It's very much apparent up here. Down here it's a little bit more subtle because it kind of blends in with that additional grass texture. So anyways, add some foreground or a focal point to your scene if it's something like this, and extend the distance of a given scene with the use of some foreground, and also add some framing to your given composition, and add a little bit of that vignette type of effect with some actual imagery. Okay? Thanks for watching.